Donald Trump. Add that to my most embarrassing moments. Before you go to bed on Saturday night, ask your dreams a question. Welcome back to the beginning of the week. Are you ready to start feeling good? Well, I have to do the tech news first. A helium discovery in northern Minnesota may be the biggest ever discovered, or something. Excuse me, my cable management. This is important because the party line is I guess they found this helium deposit several years ago and forgot about it. Even though helium is really important. The thing that keeps getting said about this helium is it's really important for things like MRI machines. And I keep hearing that over and over again. Yeah, that's important, but like how many MRI machines? Do they require the biggest ever helium deposited in North America? Possibly. I don't know how much helium those things drink. It's actually to cool it down. You know, the other thing that helium, the dielectric fluid helium, is used to cool? Data centers, otherwise known as your new casita, in a small pod where you generate piezoelectric current for the mainframe for behavioral tokens inside the matrix. Amazon recently paid $650 million, which sounds like chump change to me, for a nuclear data center. So I found it interesting that they won't just say data centers, because then we'll be like, well, why are we doing this again? It's weird that that's concealed. It's such an obvious thing. But that doesn't. Data centers are down in the polls. Roku disabled its TV boxes until users agree to their new arbitration rules. So you have to accept individual arbitration or your box won't turn on. Per the Roku dispute resolution terms, users can opt out within 30 days of being subject to the new terms by sending a surface mail request to General Counsel, Roku Incorporated, 1701 Junction Court, Suite 100, San Jose, California 95112. Obviously, we sign off on weird stuff every day, but as the world becomes more and more dependent on AI bot machines for a living, this kind of stuff is going to happen. Should an emoji count as confirmation of a contract? Interesting question. Since the birth of emojis, the legal world has wondered, like, what does an emoji mean? I don't know the ins and outs of that. I'm sure, like, that discussion is so much more refined now and we have solutions, maybe. I don't know. I should ask a lawyer. But this brings me to a bigger idea. So first, the entire legal world is going to have a lot to do with blockchain smart contracts. So that's different from, it's a much more like mechanically binding contract than the old-timey ones that you sign with your signature. And every transaction, which could be like every interaction, can turn out to be some sort of smart contract in the metaverse, where every interaction is some sort of transaction because it results in a change in your data, and behavioral and skill tokens are generated. This brings me to my wacky prediction that the US Constitution is going to be replaced with smart contracts. Our Constitution's we are gonna try to tear the whole thing down and rebuild it, including the Constitution, which will be blockchain smart contracts, because they're more efficient. And ostensibly because then you're interacting directly with the government instead of having all this red tape. The Pluto return of the Constitution is beginning now. Pluto was in Aquarius during the signing of the US Constitution. So in the same way that Pluto, the grand finale of Pluto and Capricorn and the Pluto return of the country, the United States, all the COVID narrative and the many different types of power dynamics that surrounded that resulted in some deep change and some pretty painful things to look at. So too will our Constitution specifically experience that kind of dark undercurrent that results in potential eruptions of things that aren't fun to look at and then like major change. And the Pluto return of the United States is also kind of like a prologue to the Mars-Uranus conjunctions upcoming in Gemini in the next few years, next year through 2033 or something. And Mars-Uranus conjunctions in Gemini are always very significant for the United States. The United States was born during one. The Revolutionary War happened during one. The United States involvement in World War II happened during one. And now is the next one. And if I don't know why you'd be watching this if you're not into astrology, but there's a book called The Fourth Turning, and that was written by normal people, non-astrology people, saying like every 80-something years, the United States, like something significant happens around a conflict in the United States. So what's next? And when is it? It's coming soon. I digress. Pluto return of the United States Constitution. Replacing of the Constitution with smart contracts. This isn't something that they're just going to like iron fist to like drop on us immediately. You have to start the groundswell and start the conversation. And the exact Pluto return of the United States isn't until like 2032, 2033. And if you want to put like some wider signposts around that, other than the 20-year transit of Pluto in Aquarius, which is now until about 2044, to rein in that timeline a little bit, it could be like 2030 through 2035. And then to be more like super specific, 2032, 2033. And to get ultra super duper specific, Uranus's transit of Gemini, you have the grand finale of Uranus's transit of Gemini during the exact Pluto return of the United States. So when Uranus finishes up transiting a sign, which takes about 7 years, at the end of that 7 years, we astrologers tend to like understand the specifics a lot better about like exactly what that was about. Because in the beginning, there's like, oh, here are the things coming down the tracks that I see this being about, and then any little gaps in details of how that was manifested concretely get filled in. So by that time, we'll be like, we know what Uranus in Gemini is about, like exactly what transformative conflict the United States is involved in. And then if you want to get ultra super specific, Mars conjoins Uranus about every 2 years. Mars transit of Gemini is like May, June 2032. So just put like, to give it space to like ramp up and die down, like April through June 2032. Hot time for the United States and for the Constitution and for replacing the Constitution with smart contracts. And interestingly, we have the Jupiter return of the vaccine rollout. We have the Jupiter return of the inoculation. We have the Jupiter return of major medical innovation that eventually resulted in nationwide conflicts over enforced treatment compliance or economic incentives around economically devastating incentives for some around treatment compliance. And that's also Project Warp Speed, which is like the rollout of these treatments. And Palantir, the company Palantir, was very involved with that, the logistics of making it actually warp speed. Like the data was very dialed in. The God mode dashboard was very dialed in. So Jupiter will be at 1 Aquarius when Mars is conjoining Uranus in Gemini, and Pluto will be at the degree it was at when the Constitution was signed. Interesting time. Also interesting, that period is inside of a 2.5 year period of time that we can refer to as the Saturn return of 9/11. So there's an article from March 6th, 2024, just a few days ago at the time of this recording, that's called Let AI, it's an opinion piece from the Washington Post, which is, I think, owned by Jeff Bezos. Let AI remake the US government, and in parentheses, O, and save the country. And it characterizes the US government as a massive system that is, quote, constitutionally resistant to solutions. It begins with Palantir, exactly what they do and how they rolled out Project Warp Speed and all the things like that make them amazing and make them like a global billions and billions of dollars enterprise that serves all the big names with their data dashboards. It's kind of a little bit like an opinion piece about like Palantir taking over the government. Palantir is a term from The Lord of the Rings. It's these crystal balls that are indestructible, and if you use them, you have to be really careful because you can misinterpret the data and ruin yourself and your whatever you're up to. Also, they can be used for evil really easily to like misguide others. It can only show things that are true, but the Palantir in Lord of the Rings, they can show things that are true in misleading ways in order to do bad. Anyway, this article advocates the US government needs these amazing God mode, which is like you can see everything, dashboards from Palantir so that the government can be more efficient and effective, which they're not wrong. But this, I have my doubts on whether this will like cause us to ascend into utopia, which that itself is a very Aquarian concept. And it also talks about a book called Recoding America that is about like not just adding technology to the government, but starting over, like wiping the slate clean and just starting over, which makes a great case for replacing the Constitution with smart contracts sometime between now and 20 years from now, but maybe more specifically 2030 through 2035, and even more specifically 2032 and 2033, and even more specifically summer of 2032. This book, I can't remember if I think it's like this article I found talking about this book. They talk about the methodical demolition and joyful reconstruction of the government. Anyway, there's a lot more to say about that. Obviously, the government would benefit greatly from these types of dashboards, but also their Palantir. They're like, no matter who builds them, the mess that it is now is doing damage, and the methodical demolition and joyful reconstruction can be used to the advantage of structures already in power to make them more powerful and to make us less powerful. One of my videos a few weeks ago, I talked about a thing that's like the future of elections. There are these like AI models, and you just like are continually voting with your behavioral or skill tokens for an AI to make decisions for you. And it's like, oh, it's radically participatory, but we can see all the ways that could be, the strings of that could be pulled to be not so advantageous. This book, Recoding America, starts with a quote by someone named David Graeber, and the quote is, "The ultimate hidden truth of the new world is that it is something that we make and could just as easily make differently." And it's from something called The Utopia of Rules, which I thought was like so Aquarius to the max. Anyway, back to the tech news. Should an emoji count as confirmation of a contract? This is in the news right now. China intensifies its push to, quote, delete America from its technology. Also, this past week, a House panel unanimously approved a bill that could ban TikTok. So these two things, China wants to get out of America, but it still wants to be in America with its super fun social media app. But the stodgy old House wants to ban it. The people planning to replace the Constitution with smart contracts are not putting this in the news right now. Instead, it's this. Like, I'm bringing this up as the tech news because it's just like to create a distraction. And the example I bring up all the time is like the first year of Donald Trump being president, and he was doing something wacky and outrageous and stupid or whatever, and everybody was like, Donald Trump. While that was happening, the House of Representatives voted to end privacy protections that made it so that people couldn't buy your data from your internet service provider. So that's why anyone could do that now, including Palantir and NSA. So this pair of stories is doing that. Can emojis count to sign a contract? Enter a long tirade about the Pluto return of the United States and the fate of our US Constitution and America, transformative conflicts around the same time. And then everybody raising, like having their arms up in the air about like, oh, they're gonna ban TikTok. Probably not gonna ban TikTok, but Palantir won a US Army contract for Battlefield AI. It's a $178.4 million contract to house a battlefield intelligence system inside a big truck. It's the hottest thing I've ever heard. It's supposed to be the Army's first AI-defined vehicle, and Palantir will provide systems for Titan ground station, which is designed to access space, high-altitude, aerial, and terrestrial sensors to provide actionable targeting information for enhanced mission command and long-range precision fires. Titan stands for Tactical Intelligence Targeting Access Node. Titan is also a logical extension of Maven, a controversial project for using machine learning and engineering to tell people and objects apart in drone footage, in which Palantir is a partner and from which Google famously pulled out after employees protested. MIT has come out with a 4D knit dress. So this dress, the way it's knit, you then use like a heat gun thing and target it at certain spots in the body, and you can shrink it up or release it to make the dress. So then you have one dress and it's like 4 different dresses, which is cool. Cool idea. From what looks like a heat gun, seems to be, this isn't like a 100% wool or linen dress. This is probably synthetic fibers that can shrink and release without doing damage or much damage. So if you weren't already sad and uncomfortable in your blue light filled world that is actively conspiring against your radiant health, sitting around in your polyester clothes, in the future you will have one dress that you can be sad and uncomfortable in. In Saturn and Pisces news, there is this thing called Sea Kit. They're remotely controlled, uncrewed surface vessels. So safer, more efficient than having vessels that have a crew of human beings on them. Except what about when the terms of service? What about when you need to... so they're apparently cost-effective, CO2 reduction, and safer. EA, Electronic Arts, CEO Andrew Wilson said that generative AI could make it 30% more efficient. And JP Morgan says that its AI-aided cash flow model can cut manual work by 90%. 90%. Can you picture things in your mind? That was a headline this week. It's one of these that's like, I don't know why, but I kind of do know why. So it starts out like, can you do that? Because some people, I guess, can't do that. Someone, like, reading it, a commenter said that they'd never realized that people could create mental images, and they also wonder if people with this condition tend to go into STEM fields. Can you picture in your mind the more beautiful world your heart knows is possible? Because you're going to get a slice of it now through April 4th. Venus's transit of Pisces. So on Monday around 2 p.m. Pacific, so kind of late in the day if you're anywhere else in the world, Venus enters Pisces. What a relief. So whatever part of your chart Pisces is, that's going to be pretty nice. Anytime Venus goes through that area, that's extra nice. Venus is exalted in Pisces. It's the place where the archetype of Venus, embodied pleasures, functions best. Also, what houses does Venus rule in your chart? So what houses are Libra and Taurus? Those, whatever happens to the planet happens to the house. So those areas of your life are also probably going to go pretty well for the next month. And then where is Venus in your natal chart? Like what sign and thus house? That area of life, Venus will have something to say, something good to say, maybe, probably, depending on your chart. And it's still Venus with Neptune, so it could go like a little bit overboard or be a little too idealistic, or a little bit with Venus and Pisces, kind of like be careful what you wish for. Also on Monday, the moon conjoins the North Node. So the moon in Aries now is giving us a preview of the eclipse seasons to come. Tuesday is a shift in tone because the moon moves into Taurus in the evening. So most of Tuesday, we just have the moon sextiles Mars early in the morning. So wake up early. Good day to start waking up early. So I guess it's more grounded actually in the evening. So like plan a delicious dinner. However, the moon in Taurus for the next 20 years is squaring Pluto in Aquarius, which tells us a little something about what Pluto in Aquarius means as it's in square aspect to the best version of the moon. The moon is what we're comfortable with. It's our emotional attunement. It's how we feel safe and nurtured and empowered by care. Pluto in Aquarius is here to be very, very, very in conflict with our best health and wellness. So Pluto, corruption in Aquarius of the futurist power structure, is at odds with the best care of our bodies. One big thing that we know is like everybody knows about the blue light thing. It disrupts you producing a powerful antioxidant. And not only are blue lights like still everywhere, they're being cranked up. Like the blue light is everywhere. I can't open my refrigerator at night. I have to make sure that I put on my red light glasses and still hide my eyes to open my refrigerator because it's like a blindingly blue LED blast. And I can't turn it down. I can't turn the light down. Pluto in Aquarius, squaring the moon. So there's a little bit of that for your lovely dinner on Tuesday. The mega graphic video billboard shining through your window will probably disrupt the ambiance. Wednesday is just the moon sextiling Saturn and the moon conjoining Jupiter. So Saturn-Jupiter stuff, we get kind of a longer view. Wednesday is still about how our very best health and wellness is at odds with corruption in the futurist power structure. But Thursday, we get a little more of a wide-angle lens. It's pretty chill other than these two aspects to Saturn and Jupiter. So it's like a triumphant feeling, but very serious also. Oh, and the moon conjoins Uranus in the wee hours, so maybe even surprising on Thursday. Thursday is very busy with the moon just integrating everything that happened. And remember, Venus is still in Pisces. Just whatever, if it gets too busy, remember Venus is in Pisces. So if you have access to feeling good, I hope, depending on your chart. And in the evening, the moon moves into Gemini. So a chatty, maybe you're like buying and selling your cryptocurrency, you're in a group chat. Maybe that like interferes with your sleep. Friday, Venus is in Pisces, and the moon in Gemini squares Venus in Pisces. So it's like too many DMs, or maybe not enough DMs. Not enough DMs. Too many DMs. You're trying to like take your rose petal magnesium salts bath, and you're getting too many DMs. Your phone's blowing up, and you have all these relationships, all these little like micro relationships to manage, instead of like deep, grand, sweeping Venus and Pisces style. So that actually happens in the wee hours on Friday. So that's probably a Thursday night thing. Friday, aside from the moon squaring Venus, the moon sextiles Mercury. So the moon in Gemini sextiles Mercury in Aries. High five the chatbot, because you had all these relationships to manage and you don't know how to write 40 tactful messages to different people sensitively at one time. So you just have Claude write them for you. And then the moon squares Saturn in Pisces. So remember that Claude isn't real. Claude is us. Is this the first Venus in Pisces with Saturn? I think it is. There's a little more practicality to this Venus in Pisces. It's a little different. Maybe comfort is a little colder, perhaps. Maybe you have to like put in the work to get what Venus in Pisces offers this time around and the next time around. Saturday, nothing happens until the evening. The moon in Gemini trines Mars, so most of the day Saturday, the moon's applying to a trine with Mars. A good time to get some knowledge work done. It's the moon in Gemini trining Mars in Aquarius. Or like, figuring out your utopia of rules or whatever. And then the moon squares the sun and Neptune in Pisces. Can you picture things in your mind? You might have like too many choices, or like information coming from too many places to take full advantage of what the sun and Neptune are doing in Pisces, which is like making that area of life, the subtleties in that area of life, more visible. But you need some quiet time. You need some quiet time to see those things, and the moon in Gemini is not going to give you that. Saturday night, you might like want to like wind down, and you can't. Aquarius and Pisces are both like the outer reaches of reality, and the moon in Gemini is local. So you might, there might be parts of your life that are pulled towards experiencing the outer reaches and the subtleties of those realms of experience. But the moon is like, you got to answer the phone, and you have 20 texts, and you got to look up this thing for a project tomorrow, and you need to help your kid with their homework. Before you go to bed on Saturday night, ask your dreams a question. So Sunday is very different. Sunday is a change in tone. In the wee hours, the moon moves into Cancer. So when you wake up on Sunday, if you sleep like a normal person at night, then when you wake up, the moon will be in Cancer, which is not at odds. Luckily, so the best moon, Taurus, that's at odds with the psychotic, corrupt, futurist power structure. But Cancer is off axis from all that. So that's really nice. The comfort you're trying to get on Tuesday and Wednesday, you can have cheeseburger today. So the moon, every time there's a cazimi, I say it's a good time for meditation, because it is. But the sun conjoins Neptune, which is an annual event on Sunday, and that's a good time for meditation. Wake up early, like like some people do their meditation at like 3 a.m. Sunday's a good day if you want to fuck around with that. Experiment with super early morning meditation. The sun is technically cazimi with Neptune, 12:22 a.m. Sunday morning, So you could also do this Saturday night, 12:22 a.m. through 10:15 a.m. Sunday morning. And the exact conjunction is 4:22 a.m. And all of these are Pacific time. So you can, anytime around Sunday night. But if you could be in meditation, deeply in meditation at 4:22 a.m. Pacific time, that could you'll get something out of it. And with the sun conjoining Neptune, I think of the koshas. It's a Hindu concept of your internal layers of being. So we have the idea of the aura or whatever that is, and you have these outer layers, but the koshas are the inner layers. And this is a diagram I made in my yoga trainings, which were not American fitness yoga trainings at all. And these layers of our being, we need to keep healthy. And they can also function as doors that are open and closed to each other and to the world. So the outer kosha is the physical body. So that's pretty self-explanatory. And your relationship with your physical body, your body is your buddy. It's an animal you have to take care of. And you and your body aren't separate, but according to many different traditions, you do have access to, when you are no longer with your body, when you move on into other realms, in whatever form, your consciousness, your body stays with the earth. So this union is very special. And that's my take. That's not necessarily a part of the koshas. But the outer kosha is the physical body. The next layer in is the sheath of living energy, and it's what in yoga that's referred to as prana. It's like life energy, like a fresh picked piece of fruit still has prana. Like your food sitting out for a few days in a takeout box doesn't have any prana anymore. And the yogic practice of breathing is referred to as pranayama. So there's something about the life force in your breath. So physical body, and then your life force energy is the next kosha in. And then you have the kosha that's made of mind. And this is your thoughts and your fantasies, your dreams, your memories, and it's the part that quiets during meditation. So in yoga, the vritti, it's like the little Gemini moon in your mind. That's your thinky brain. And then the next one in is the sheath made of wisdom. So you can see there's a interesting Mercury-Jupiter correlation here with your thinky mind brain and then knowing gained through wisdom. It's the things that you know deeply through experience. In some ways, the oncoming, everything needing to be quantified by material data with the tools we can use to measure it now sort of leaves not a lot of room for wisdom. And the next one in is the sheath made of bliss. So it's a little similar to the one made of prana or life force. The sheath made of bliss is the one that most closely guards the self, referred to as the Atman, which is just a point in the middle, which I'll put. The Atman is the self, and it's the witness. You could go into Atman mode at any time and just be the witness. So you have all these layers. What are they made of? Are they healthy? Are all of them healthy? Do any one of them in your Cazimi, Sun Neptune Cazimi meditation, do any of them feel dented or weak or sick? Interestingly, if you remove the koshas and just keep the physical body with the Atman, look at what symbol that makes. Interesting, the one about being, the essence of being. Before you go to bed on Saturday night, ask your dreams a question. So what house is Pisces in your chart? Again, what house does the sun rule? What house is Leo? What happens to the planet happens to the house. So these areas of life will be illuminated, both Pisces and Leo. And this is the end of Pisces, so we can have either happy ending or sudden downer ending because we were too idealistic and didn't pay attention to detail. And also, if you get one or the other, both are probably not what they seem. If you have a super happy ending, if this conclusion of this Neptune cycle is yay, everything's amazing, that might be not what it seems. If it's a sudden downer ending and it's really disappointing, that also could not be what it seems. Neptune is about you can't put your finger on it. You can't pin it down. But a fantasy, something that's a fantasy. The word fantasy doesn't have to be derogatory. We need a little bit of fantasy. If we don't have any, then you're one of those people who can't picture things in their mind and just goes into STEM. Nothing wrong with that. But Neptune makes like pure imagination and what manifests into reality just a mess. And that's the beauty. Working with Neptune is more like going with the flow. And the sun conjoining Neptune will allow you to kind of see, if you can get quiet on Sunday especially, see all these koshas, these like inner layers of your being that become more like eternal and far out the further in you go. And with Saturn present, what binds you? What are you bound by? And how can you use that to become more free? Or to gain more or better wisdom? Anyway, Sunday is bound to be quite a ride. Not like a crazy roller coaster ride, but like a float down a lazy river, but that has maybe just a float around, an aimless float around a wave pool, and you learn some stuff. Or you imagine some stuff that is helpful, that will carry you forward. So before you go to bed on Saturday, ask your dreams a question. And remember, your Wi-Fi is a camera that can see through walls.